Hello, everybody. I know that you are watching the end credits of the film right now. If we're in the corner screen for you, feel free to switch over and join us for this Q&A. Hopefully you can hear us. Let us know in the chat if you can hear us. And I will start introducing our lovely panelists here that we have. Our co-producer Pulkit Dutta is also off screen helping us out in the chat box. So feel free to ask your questions so that we can address them and answer them in this Q&A here. So yes, hello. I will introduce myself first. My name is Pallavi Sastry. I'm a producer on the film. And I will start with Nick. I don't know where he is on your screen. He's below me though.
You're below me. So how interesting is that? Hi, everyone. I'm Nick. Clearly, you know that I'm the director, and you just saw a bit of my journey. So not too much introduction needed here.
How about you, Tammy?
Hello, hello. I'm Tammy Stackelhouse, and you will have seen me in the film. You can tell how, I was thinking this morning, you can tell how long ago we made it by the fact I've gone gray since.
I think everybody's hair has gone through an evolution in this film, except for Nick.
Mine has not.
And last but not least, we have Rose.
Hello, and my dog Claire is wanting to play fetch right now, so if you see me throw something, that's because of my dog. I think now my hair is back to when we began. Actually,
everything comes full circle,
which
right?
is hilarious. But yes, I'm a producer on the film, and you see me in the film, and I will be muted unless I'm talking because my dog is a lot.
Well, I think that's a great little segue. You know, we've commented a lot on how much we've all evolved physically, you know, through the making of the film. And that's because it took us 7.5, 8 years to get to today, you know. And it's not unlike the fibromyalgia journey of like finding answers and taking that long to find answers and whatnot. So, you know, I want to start with really about seeing the film. We've all seen it so many times. But my question for you all is, you know, even though you have seen it, each time you see it, does anything still surprise you or hit you differently in the film? Can you give any examples of that? Nick, let's start with you.
Wow. You know, nobody has seen the film more than me. Literally nobody.
Touche.
And so when I see it, it's not that I see something new as a filmmaker say, oh, well, that could have been better or this or that. So sometimes I get into my head technically, but what really I always connect with are the stories, not of my story so much, you know, because I lived it, but the stories of our participants, you know, and even our experts, and I get something maybe slightly new, or I see it in a different way because now I'm a few years out from my diagnosis. And so I can look at and listen to the film and learn something that go, oh, and I make a connection now to something that I was dealing with in the past or that is coming up for me currently. And so in that way, I see it new, if that makes sense.
Sure. Tammy?
I wouldn't say that there's necessarily new things that have come up for me, but what has surprised me is, you know, having seen the film, it's not like I don't know the ending, but there are a few things that still get me every time, right? Like the very end where it says Nick and, you know, when he was diagnosed, and gets me every time. When Dr. Ginevra is talking about being in medical school, gets me every time. You know, when Rose is talking about being an example, it's still so powerful, even as many times as I've seen it. So good job, Nick. But really.
Team, good job, the entire team. There's so many people that went into the making of this for sure.
Yeah, definitely. How about you, Rose?
I think for me, whenever I watch it, and I was joking with our team before we came on here to talk to you guys, that I watched for legal, you have to go very carefully through a documentary to make sure that when you give it to your attorney that you're not saying anything mean about anybody or wearing a brand or something. So I had to go through the film like this, like and write down time codes. Um, and what I remember every time I watch it is like what we don't see. Like I remember details of like, because even if I wasn't on screen as a producer, I was there every single shoot day except for a couple, and I remember like details of what the weather was like when we were traveling, and like there was one day that it was raining and we had to figure out how to make it make sense that it was raining outside because you could hear the rain but we didn't have a shot of the rain. And I just remember how gloomy it was, and it was sort of a gloomy day that we were shooting in a gloomy subject. So for me, it's an experience of the mood of the process of the almost a decade that we were working on this, and so that's I think why it gets me every time is it gets my heart about it's really not easy to make a film, especially a film like this. So I remember like where I was in my life, how many years ago we were doing this, and then how long it took, and it just makes me really proud that we were able to pull it off.
Yeah. I think that I could probably second that. I would say is like because I remember I wasn't supposed to end up in this film at all.
Neither was I.
and that's what I'm getting at. It's like I think it surprised us. Like that was the biggest challenge I think as far as filmmaking goes was like, wow, we really did let this story unfold in the way that we let it unfold, right? Like
Yeah.
we didn't force anything, and I think that's what I'm most proud of, and also what was the most frustrating about making a doc like this, because you are supposed to let it tell you where the story is going, and so that was definitely the most challenging, I would say, outside of stop start fundraising and all that good stuff that comes with independent filmmaking in general. But Rose, you touched on something, and about your evolution and where you were in your life and all that good stuff. um a lot of folks that are watching this right now and might be watching it later, they may not know the evolution of how the film came to be. So if you want to give a quick cliff notes of how that came to be, how the idea came to be, and how our panelists came on board, like how these humans on the screen right now came involved.
Yeah, sure. So this film came about because I sort of looked around. I was working in the fitness industry in New York City, and I had a lot of clients with fibromyalgia or similar things, big setbacks. That's sort of what I drew to me as clients. And also like tried to connect on Facebook and tried to find community with fibromyalgia. And I joke with Tammy because I would like get kicked out of the groups because I was like too healthy and it made people mad. And so I kind of looked around, and instead of being like put off by that or feeling left out or getting mad about it, I was like, wait, do I know something they don't know? Do I have privilege they don't have? Like, why is it that I'm doing okay? And so many people are not. So that question led me to think like, what should I do? Should I write a book? I was like 25, like too young to write a memoir, like don't do it. And I sort of thought, no, that would be hard. Like, I don't want, what can they see something? And so I was already an actress and I wasn't afraid of the idea of making a movie. I called up Pallavi, not knowing that she like wanted to also be a producer. She was just a friend of mine in a different context and sort of said, will you help me do this? Is this a crazy idea? I think we need this movie. And then it was Pallavi who introduced us to Nick. And then it really went from there. I don't take any credit for this film other than I think this film needs to exist, was really where it came from. It was like, what am I doing differently? And for some reason, nobody really wants to talk to me about it, but maybe I have something I can share. Maybe the context needs to be different for me to be able to share some value without triggering people. So that's that. Yeah. That's it, I guess.
Nick, do you remember that first conversation we had about it?
I do. You said to me, you asked me actually, do you know anything about fibromyalgia? And my eyes got really big because I said, yeah, my mom has it, but I actually don't know anything about it.
Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking to myself, Nick was the only person at that time that was like so accessible for me to like just ask for advice and pick his brain, because when you've never made a movie before, it's like very much like chicken and egg. It's like, who's gonna trust that you can make a movie if you've never done it before? And so like Nick was like a safe space for me in that way. And then I couldn't believe like the kismet of that, and then I just in the moment was just like, well, we don't have a director, and I felt like it was word vomit.
And you caught me at the right exact moment because I had just decided that I wanted to explore some film because my background is all theater, that I wanted to explore some filmmaking. And so it was just, like you said, this kismet moment of my mother, of where I was, and you all, your needs, and it just came together in the perfect, perfect way.
Yeah. And Tammy, I think we came to you through just asking the community for connections, and
No,
no, was it
no,
that? Okay,
no.
remind me.
It's
Uh,
even better.
there a random person that I met networking in New York City who was the reason we did our first t-shirt fundraising campaign. I don't even remember her name, but you shared a mailbox or something at school. It was some weird thing, Tammy. And this person whose name I can't even recall, I'm so sorry, who like was trying to launch this t-shirt fundraising website to the fitness community. And so she found me and sort of like followed up with me. And then she said, "Oh, you should know Tammy." And I was sitting in a Pilates studio that I rented space in Midtown Manhattan, did a phone call with Tammy, and I was like, I don't know why we need, like, let's, great, like, I know you seem awesome, like, didn't even know where this was going to go because we hadn't launched the film yet. And then later, when we decided we were going to make the movie, I then followed up with Tammy.
Yeah,
it was wild. It was a
Go ahead.
school that I went to for like a year. And
Yeah.
it wasn't even like a roommate or anything. If Rose and I have figured out who it is, I shared a box with Adrienne for a year.
Wow. And honestly, your involvement, Tammy, and a lot of people in the chat, I think, know of you and know of your work, and know your impact on the community, and your involvement with this film has also evolved massively, right? At first,
Yeah.
you were just an open book with your knowledge and your experience and your story, and it really grew into a partnership, but not until after the film was completed. And I think you were maybe one of the first 5 people to see the completed film, right? When we were ready to actually show it. Because at that point, we had gone through, oh gosh, 4 years of editing, 4 years of re-edits. It was quite an undertaking. So yeah, I guess my question to you is, for everybody that's from the fiber community that's been watching, what was what do you take away from this experience, and what made you want to stick around and evolve in your partnership with us in this way?
Well, I knew you guys had it right. Like your approach to this, your heart for this, like it was something that I believed in from the get-go. Just who you guys are as people. But also, we I say we because it's we now, but you at the time, I could tell wanted to tell the real story about fibromyalgia, which means also telling the stories that aren't so good, right? But that's not the only story either. And, Rose's story, my story, the people who did get better, like the whole picture of fibromyalgia. And to leave people with some hope at the end too, not just like see how horrible this disease is, end of film, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was definitely something that I wanted to be part of, and just all the work you guys did and just watching you over the years. It was I remember at one point towards the end I'm like, Nick, how much more money do you guys actually need? Because like, let's get this thing done, okay?
And listen, as unglamorous or as that sounds, that's essentially sometimes what gets
Happen.
movies finished or happen in the first place and gets them out. There are plenty of movies that are done but don't get released because they just don't have the support, the financial support to get it out there. And so yeah, that combination of Tammy's generosity and Fran, our other EP's generosity, and the community coming together and crowdfunding with us, like every single thing, every dollar of that ended up on the screen. Because we didn't pay ourselves at all. So that's another reason why it took so long, right? To get it done.
Yeah, I think that that's really a key thing is that it couldn't be anybody's first project
Yeah.
because of that. And so that's part of the reason it did take so long. I often get asked why? Why did it take you so long? And there was two pieces to that. One, fundraising, and two, it couldn't be any of our first jobs because we weren't being paid.
Yeah. So we had to, and that's the other thing, right? Talk about evolution. We've all moved to different places. Like we've all, a lot of us cross country. I had a whole baby in this process, so it's just it's been very much like a labor of love. That's such a corny joke now that I've said I've had a baby.
Oh,
But yeah, we do have some questions pouring in, and I do want to get to them. I'm gonna throw them into my mix here, so please do bear with me as I do that. So what I want to move on to is a lot of this film is about relationships and how we function within them, whether we have fibro or have a loved one with fibromyalgia. And so I wanted to hear from all of you about, in your experience, how have you changed within your relationships since getting your diagnosis? I know it's a large question, but if there's any, things that jump out at you, please do share. Start with Nick.
well, I'm clearly the most recent to have received the diagnosis. So the relationships that have shifted, clearly the relationship with my mother that we show in the film has significantly shifted, and just this sort of deeper level of understanding of her, of me. And it's definitely, as we said, brought us closer because we check on each other now, and we talk in a way that we didn't have that verbiage or that language. So for sure there. And my husband understands it more. I will say that for sure. I got married since the film came out, and he understands it more. Uh, so it's really what it has done for me is deepened the relationships for
Mm,
sure.
mm-hmm. Rose
I
or
was very
Tammy?
fortunate
Oh,
that nobody like ran away or said you're crazy, or I didn't have that, thankfully.
mm. Rose or Tammy?
Well,
Yeah.
for me, it's jump in, right? For me, I wouldn't say that my like I've been doing this a long time. I was just telling these guys, I've been coaching now almost 15 years, and I was diagnosed before I was a coach. So it's over the length of the time of the film, like my relationship with fibromyalgia, my relationship with people, that hasn't really changed, except that um, from when we first talked to now I'm teaching other people how to go out and do the work that I do. And that is so amazing to me because I get stories from people that I never would have been able to help, right? People that I've helped are now going out and helping people. And so there's like this whole nother level to it, which is really, really cool. And honestly, this film has been a great part of that for me, a great tool for all of us to be able to share with new clients, to have those clients share with their families so their families can understand better. So for me, it's just been like another evolution of how we can get the word out and help people feel better.
Mm.
Yeah. And I
Rose, did
think,
you want to add anything? Yeah.
yeah, for me, I've been symptom free for so long now. And then also, I know I moved cross country a year and a half ago, actually, though, back to where I grew up, which was also a really interesting situation, but into a different town and as an adult. So I'm making new friends in a new city. And when people meet me now, this isn't something that comes up. So it's an interesting reversal where then they find out about the film or somehow it comes up and it's like another layer of people getting to know me, but more from a place of knowledge. And what always happens is, oh gosh, my mom, oh gosh, my aunt, oh gosh, my sister, oh gosh, so. And what's really neat for them is to see someone who can support them in some way, if no other reason than, hey, watch this movie. um, because I'm retired from the fitness industry, except for I still offer support to the fibromyalgia community. I always will. But I'm retired. Other than I do other things for work now. But it's really fun when then they realize that they didn't expect that there was support that they didn't know they could have standing right in front of them in a package that's surprising, because for some reason this always comes up like at the gym. Like I will have been doing like really heavy weightlifting and then they find this out and then it's like this huge amount of trust. Oh, like, oh, then you really probably can help my mom. Right. So it's a really lovely sort of layer of who I am, that I have a lot of respect for and a lot of care for, because Tammy, like you said, like we really did come from the right place in wanting to make this movie. And even in how I help people now with fitness, it always has to come from that deeper place for me. It's really, truly not about money.
And can I say, relationships with strangers that you were talking about, I can't tell you the number of people that have DM'd me, that have emailed me after watching the film, and I want to thank all of you because it really does mean a lot to us, particularly after 10 years of working, to have that response and to receive your emails to say how and why it helped, or that it helped your loved one. That truly does mean a lot. So thank you.
Mm. Yeah, and I think the moral, where the discussion ends up unfolding a lot of the time around the movie, is that the moral of it, or one of the morals is, or a takeaway, is that there's no one way to manage or treat or live with fibromyalgia, and that for all of us in the various conversations we've had with people can be either empowering or super frustrating, right? Because we want like an answer, right?
I will say it's both for me, because I do get people reaching out now quite a bit, and a lot of people want to tell me how to fix myself, right? And so there is this part of me that's like, and I get this, that's kind of pulls away. It's like, don't tell me what to do, right? And then there's the other part of me that's like, oh well, that's interesting. I haven't tried that. It's both, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And while the three of us are very, very fortunate because we are all, for the most part, fairly symptom free, I can imagine how frustrating it must be for somebody who is not, that is in a more of a struggle position or place currently.
Right. And so that sort of leads me into my next question, which was what was the worst, right? Because all of you were diagnosed and were at the beginning of your journeys at one point. So what was the moment where you were like, I've got to figure this out. This is horrible. I don't want to feel this way, or do you mind sharing what that
I've
turning
shared
point was for
mine
you?
many places, many times. So I'm happy to do that again. For me, I had been diagnosed a few years, and I had this moment where you know how you get those like glimpses of where your life is going, and it was like all downhill. And I remember this moment where I was still in my pajamas, the same pajamas I had been in all week, just to be clear. And I had company coming over the next day. I think it was just family or something like that. And my husband, who is usually very supportive, was just not at this particular moment. I'm like, we've got to pick up the house. I don't know why, but I remember vacuuming the stairs was a thing. And I remember being in these pajamas that I'd been in for a week, trying to vacuum the stairs, sitting on the stairs, being so exhausted, and just started bawling and had this moment of, maybe this is what disability is actually about. I can't take care of myself. Look at me. I haven't showered. I haven't changed clothes. I can't take care of my house. Like that was probably the lowest moment where I was like, this is not the life that I want, and I have to figure this out.
Yeah. I'll jump in too. So it was about 4 years after I had been diagnosed, and I'll tie this in. I think I can see at least one question that came in from you, the audience, and I'll tie into that. About 4 years after being diagnosed, I was in college. And I had to walk up, I think, three flights of stairs to my car in a parking structure on the college campus. And it was like not very far. It was not hot. Like there wasn't any other extenuating circumstance. And I had to stop partway up, and there was like no elevator. It was like definitely a weird situation. And I like couldn't get to my car. And I thought, okay, I need to do something. I need to figure this out because what am I going to not graduate? What am I going to drop out of college? Like I didn't, there was, and this was in maybe 2003. So there weren't as many resources available. We didn't know as much. I was getting gaslit really badly by doctors. I also was not even 20 yet, was thin and had visible muscle tone. I've always had visible muscle tone even since I was 6 years old. So people were not believing that I was not okay. And I think I'm going to shout this out because I know Tammy won't do it herself. Tammy is actually the best recommendation I'm going to give, and her books, her podcast, as the best resource that I can give anyone who either doesn't have a doctor or a specialist in their area, or if you want information about someone asked about how do we begin treating ourselves, go back to the first episode of Tammy's podcast and just listen, because what she's going to do is introduce you to all of the people who you don't know about. And it's just really incredible what a resource she is and how good her books are as well. And the reason I say that is that these are things I wish that I would have had back then, at least to help me not feel alone, before I did find the care that I needed. And also, we are not experts on research or legislation. We're not the people to tell you about that so much. But Tammy interviews all of those people on her podcast, and she'll tell you where to follow them so you can be up to date.
Yeah, we also have a great resource. Sorry, Nick, I'll let you finish.
No, go ahead.
The invisible resource guide that we put together, Pulketh, our co-producer who's manning the chat right now, he can throw a couple of links in there. It is on our website, is available to download. All of Tammy's books and podcast and all those links are on there. The other resources that Rose just mentioned, which is the nonprofits that are doing the advocacy work. The film was meant for us to be a connecting resource as well. So we're hoping that now that you've seen it, you'll go and look at that resource guide and connect with the folks that will be able to change the way healthcare is done in at least this country. There are, obviously many other countries that do healthcare differently. And I think that there are, like on our Facebook page, we have a couple of folks from the UK that are really active on there. And we're again, you can always email us as well, and we'll do our best to send you in the right direction as well. So we do try our best to give you all the resources. And Nick, I know you wanted to say something as well.
You said it. You took
okay.
care of it. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. So in addition to resources, I would say, I want to hear again, because this can be a very frustrating process, once you're diagnosed or you're trying to get diagnosed. And, we don't have Johan here with us, but Johan was such a important piece of this story to show that there can be the access that people have, right? That she didn't have. And all of you are very open with your I'll call it what it is, privilege, and the privilege that you have and the access that you have. So in addition to the resources that we've talked about, do you have any words of affirmations that you can say to those that are watching, that might be watching later, about what it means to be your own advocate, and how to stay motivated when it feels like there isn't a way? I'll let anybody start.
Okay. Well, I want to say, I see in the chat there's some discussion about diet and exercise and a lot of that we discuss in the film. And no, not everyone has the same access. That's just the truth of the matter. And we, at least try to point that out in the film. And it doesn't even everything doesn't work for everyone either. That's the other part of this. That's so the mystery of it. And I think there's chat about it needing to be all or nothing. And what I want to say that there's a big piece of this for me was finding the right combination. And what works for Rose, what works for Tammy may not work for me, and vice versa. And it doesn't have to be you can't eat any of this. I tried that. Let me tell you this. After I was diagnosed, I went no sugar, no caffeine, no gluten, no dairy, all at the same exact time. First of all, my body went into it was like detox hell, to be perfectly honest with you. And then my husband came in and brought me a croissant and was like, please eat this, please, because you're miserable. You're a miserable human. So, so I did. But it's about finding the right combination, and it's not an all or nothing. That's the first thing I want to say. And do what you can, try what you can until you can find the combination that works for you with the resources that you currently have.
Mm-hmm.
I'll jump in too, because I've shared this with Tammy. So also for anyone here, I will talk to anybody for 30 minutes for free about anything that I know. And if you want to get connected to that, I'm in the resource guide, whatever, it's fine. And the reason I say that is that the first thing that I always have to do when I talk to anyone specifically about the fitness piece is that there are already so many things that they're already doing right or well. And it's my job to help them see the things that they're already doing right or well first. So they have to give themselves credit. And 9 times out of 10, people end up in a free consult with me and they realize they don't actually need to hire me or pay me because they've already learned what I needed to show them. They just needed to be affirmed for that. And there maybe is something else going on. Someone I spoke to recently, she just really has to get a knee replacement surgery. And I can't help her do that. But she's got so many other incredible people in her corner to help her once she's able to deal with stupid health insurance problems as to why they're not letting her get a knee replacement. So I want to say that because we're taught to not give ourselves credit for the things that we've already learned and we're already doing really well, because we have this thing going on in the medical industry or people trying to give us another solution or get us to pay them or something. They're always telling us we're not doing it well.
And that's really just a sneaky ableism, right? That somehow your illness is your fault. And if you just did the right things, that you would be better. Right. But that's not true. Not in 100%. Are there things that you could do to help yourself feel better? Absolutely. But there's still something going wrong in your body, something medical, something physical. This isn't all in your head. There's actual science out there for actual things that need to be fixed. So what do you do if you don't have a lot of resources? And I like to use that term resources because you might not have access to resources because of lots of different reasons, right? Like you might live in the town like where I grew up where there's like 2,000 people and the nearest mall is 2 hours away, right? So you might be in that kind of a place. So thinking about people who don't have resources, the most important thing you can do is to educate yourself. Obviously, you are not going to be your own doctor, right? There are things that you are not going to be able to do for yourself. But once you're educated and you know what needs to be done, then you know what you're looking for, right? And you'll know when you've found it too, right? You'll know if the doctor is somebody who's going to be able to help you or not, or if you need to keep looking. So I think education really is the cornerstone, but not the end, right?
I love that you said, Tammy, or keep looking, because I think that that's really, really important to say that you don't have to settle for your doctor who doesn't get it.
No.
In fact, when pardon?
Oh, I just was agreeing with you. No, you do not have to settle.
We just moved again and I had to go and find a new doctor. And I went into the doctor's office and I asked him, my first question was, A, do you believe in fibromyalgia? That was my first question. And I wanted to just see the response. And he said, absolutely. And I said, B, I know more than you do about it. I said, I just spent 10 years of my life working on this film, researching, studying it. I've read the studies, you haven't. I said, and so here's what I need you to know so that you can help me.
Mm.
Because that knowledge
Yeah,
is
you know,
power.
yeah, and it does take a lot of trial and error in order to get to that place that you're at, right, Nick?
Correct.
To be able to
Totally.
empower yourself. So it's like just like baby steps, baby steps, baby
Baby
steps,
step.
you know?
Yes, I totally
Um,
identify with the tortoise and the tortoise and the hare, right? Just like, just keep going. You just keep going.
yeah. And there was a question about the Center for Excellence. There are things like that that are being developed that will be hopefully more available in a lot of different places. Uh, that is something that the Fibromyalgia Care Society of America is working on. Millie in the film is the head of that in our organization. So I would highly recommend reaching out to her. She's very accessible. Her
Very.
organization is very accessible. So if you want to know more about that, please do reach out to her. That's also in our resource guide. And yeah, depending on where you are in the world, I think there are plenty of other countries outside the US that are handling this much better. Like so hopefully you will be able to be resources for us in that way, so that we can keep updating our guides and things like that. There was a question about long COVID, which was something that was really interesting for us to come across during the pandemic while we were re-editing and re-editing. And we were like, oh no, is this going to change the movie again? But honestly, I was really glad that we stayed on track with it, because it was we didn't want to derail what we were doing, but also at the same time we were like, okay, maybe this will be actually a really great way to enter discussions about long COVID and keep the fibromyalgia conversation alive, because there is this correlation now. So I don't know, Tammy, if you have any resources that you want to point people towards in terms of that research and how it aligns with fibro.
Yeah, it's definitely going to help us. So I noticed somebody had asked that question. Will it help? For sure. More dollars are going into research that is along the same lines as what we need for fibromyalgia. I'll tell you, before, when COVID was first hitting, I talked to so many people who received a diagnosis of fibromyalgia because it was the closest thing. And there was no code for long COVID. There was, so yes, absolutely. All that research is going to help. If you're interested in checking out research, honestly, the best resource I have for you is Google Scholar. Just go to Google Scholar. It's just scholar.google.com. And you can type in search words like fibromyalgia, long COVID, or anything else. And it will give you little excerpts and links where you can go read more about the research. There isn't one good central place for like fibromyalgia research, for instance. Although Dr.
No.
Ginevra is a great resource, and she is going to be talking about that a lot more on her YouTube channel. And I recently had her on the podcast to talk about research, but Google Scholar is your best bet.
Yes, and Dr. Ginevra's channel is also on the resource guide. So
Yeah.
again, please do refer to that for all of these folks, and sites, for your information. So I wanted to start wrapping this up because we are going to get kicked off the platform. However, not before we let you know. First of all, thank you again for joining us on this screening. We love engaging with all of you. We don't always get to all come together in this way, and when we do, it's really special. You can watch the film. It is released in most places. It is available on Amazon Prime for rent, or you can even buy the film and have it forever. And it's less than what your ticket was on the platform today. So I highly recommend doing that on Amazon Prime, or you can watch it for free on Tubi or YouTube Films. Pulkit, like I said, our co-producer, is going to drop some links here, and we're going to try our best to aggregate a list of where the film is available worldwide. We've worked really hard to release this movie, and so sometimes it's not always the easiest thing to aggregate that information, but we are working on it. But the best case scenario is to go onto the internet, onto your whatever web browser you're using, and search, Invisible Documentary or Nick Demo's Invisible, and see where it pops up, because we are fairly confident that it is available on one of those three places that I mentioned: Amazon Prime, Tubi, and YouTube. So that you can watch it wherever you are in the world. And lastly, I wanted to highlight again this platform that we are on right now, which is Kinema, which is also available worldwide. And the reason why we love this platform is because it can also be a tool for you. And what do I mean by that? So perhaps you are part of a support group, or you care about a nonprofit that advocates for those with fiber or chronic illness, or you want to share it with your family or play it at your church, or whatever it is. You can actually sign up to host your own screening on this platform that we're on right now, Kinema, for free. Like you can sign up for free to host it and sell tickets just the way that we did, and use it as a fundraiser for one of those groups that I just mentioned. And that has been done by a few groups. Tammy raised money for a group in the past as well.
Oh, all of these gone. But we did you did use it, Tammy, as well as several other groups. And if you want to organize and host, there is a link in the chat that Polky put in. And I think that's about going to wrap us up. And I want to say thank you, Tammy. Do you have any final thoughts?
Yes, actually, just real quick about hosting something on Kinema. The cool thing, you guys, about doing it through Kinema.
Oh no, Tammy.
Now we're all gone. Oh, well, bye.
I
Thank
hope
you so
Tammy
much.
was going to say it's so easy to host it on Kinema.
It
And
is.
if you don't find it easy, they have great support or will help you. Oh, and
We'll help
Tammy's
you.
saying you don't have to pay anything up front to host it.
Oh, you don't have to pay anything up front to host it. There you go. Okay.
Yay.
Interesting ending, but we appreciate you all so much.
Thank you for watching the film.
Thank you. Bye-bye.